Welcome back to Unsolicited Advice, brought to you by Toxic Bubblegum. I'm Bubblegum.
I'm Toxic.
And today we're talking about self-motivation.
Yeah, we're doing a podcast all about how to motivate yourself and not to procrastinate after we just vanished for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's sort of how it goes. You had to go on vacation, though.
Yeah, I just got back from vacation, which we were going to warn you about, but I thought I was going to be leaving one recording week after.
Yeah, we thought we had a little more time than we did, but then, companies happened.
Yeah.
Somebody bought a company who is related to Cat and essential to the vacation, so...
Yeah. That's just how it goes.
That's just how it goes. Harley is slapping and breathing. He's a boy.
Well, I'm glad he's breathing.
I like it when
I wish
he
he would
breathes.
do it a little bit quieter.
He doesn't know how to do that.
I know.
He doesn't. Luckily, the recording can't hear it, so we're just, talking about this dog that's under the table.
Nice.
It's all good. So, yes.
Self-motivation. Yeah.
We have quotes. We have a quote, specifically.
Peel me off this Velcro seat and get me moving. I sure as hell can't do it by myself.
That's from Longview by Green Day.
Yeah.
We got a Green Day quote in there.
Yep. There were a lot of really good motivational quotes, and I didn't pick any of them.
Instead, you went with the Green Day one.
Yeah, I went with the masturbation song.
Oh, of course. Oh!
Yeah.
That's what it's... Oh! Thanks, Green Day. You gotta recover yourself from that one.
I'm not going to. I sure as hell can't do it by myself.
Okay.
As Billy Joe Armstrong would say.
No,
No, it's good.
it's good.
It's half about motivation and half about how when you don't have motivation, you have to just pleasure yourself all day. It's
God
good.
damn it, Green Day.
So real good. It's that good 90s punk rock.
That's true. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything else from 90s Green Day, frankly. Or 90s anyone,
90s
I
anyone.
guess.
That's what the 90s were about, I guess.
Let's move on. This is weird. You gotta introduce the podcast.
Why we've already introduced the podcast.
Introduce the first part of the podcast.
Okay. So part 1, the importance of self-motivation in a creative field.
So the definition of self-motivation is the ability to do what needs to be done without influence from other people or situations. People with self-motivation can find a reason and strength to complete a task, even when challenging, without giving up or needing another to encourage them.
And that's from businessdictionary.com.
Ooh,
which I didn't know was a
professional.
thing. But apparently they have a lot of really good definitions of business things.
Ooh,
one of
business
which
things.
was self-motivation.
Nice.
So we're going to start off with talking a little bit about why it's important to be able to self-motivate in a creative field. I'm going to start out with, professional self-motivation, especially as a freelancer.
Because that's what you are.
Because that's what I do. Freelancing, you don't have... It's a very interesting balance because... You don't have to work a lot if you know what you're doing, but it's really, if you don't work a lot, you have to be sure to really do the work that you have, and it's a really tough balancing act, because you don't want to do too much because you get burnt out, but then if you don't do anything,
Right, then
you don't have money.
And
So.
As I understand, having money is a good thing.
I've heard having money is a good thing. I don't know if it's true. I've never had money.
It's a mystery. Thanks, Bob.
But yeah, so it's really important to be able to do that, to be able to go out and get jobs, and then to be able to complete them in a reasonable amount of time. Working for yourself, which is, traditionally what you do as a freelancer, it's really difficult because if you don't have that self-motivation, it falls apart really easily, and it's one of the hardest parts about it for me.
You do it a lot, as it turns out, because you've been doing this since you were 18, basically.
Yep. It's been about 6 years now. Been a little over 6 years.
So many years.
I'm old, guys.
You're getting
So
up there.
old.
You're getting to that cursed age. Before you know it, you'll be 35.
I'll be an elder millennial, as Eliza Schlesinger would say. Now on Netflix.
Weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
Bubblegum just spent a bunch of time corralling Harley out of the room, but he came right back.
Yeah,
so I'm glad that I talked awkwardly for that long. It did good.
You did good.
Do you want to talk about motivation?
For an academic level?
On an academic level?
Yes. So I go to school online through fancy California art school. So I have to do a lot of self-motivation because my deadlines are week long. So I have a week to get whatever my assignment is done for every class, and everything is due on Sunday at midnight California time, which means I'm consistently coming down to the wire because it's hard sometimes to get the self-motivation academically because you are doing a lot of exercises and stuff that's like, oh, this shouldn't, gesundheit.
Thank you.
This shouldn't take that long, and it's like, gesundheit.
Thank you.
Exactly
I'm going to be
like
sneezing
that.
a lot on the podcast.
Oh no, Cat, the sneezes.
I didn't take my allergy stuff until I was already here.
And you were
So.
petting the dog.
And I was petting the dog, so
You fool.
sorry about that.
But yeah, it's really important, like, if you are, like, in an academic setting where you sort of have to be a self-starter, that you have a reason. Like, I find it's a lot of setting your own goals of why to get the assignment done. And it's like, one of the things I've learned is you sort of have to pick your battles because some weeks you're just not going to get your assignments done. But it's like, if you have, like, a big project that's due and you're having trouble starting, it's like one of those things where usually the big incentive to get something done is not to fail the class, because no one wants to fail the class. But I find it's a lot more, like, better as an artist to, like, take it as, if I complete this assignment, I'll be one step closer to knowing how to do the specific thing I'm working on for it, which is important because you're there to learn, and yeah, you should learn something. It doesn't have to be what you're supposed to be learning, but you can, like, set your own goals within an assignment to help you get it done.
Yeah.
Is what I find. Yeah.
Nice.
Academics. Woohoo!
And that's, like you were talking about with the deadlines, that's something that I found is a really difficult challenge for me in self-motivation, is that if I have some kind of deadline or due date or submission date or whatever that's further away, I have a tougher time getting it done.
Right, because you're like, oh, I have so much time.
Right.
I think it also comes from because we were those kids that always procrastinated in school also. Because it's like, it always feels like when the teacher's like, you can't get this done the night before, it's like, oh, watch me do it. And it's like, that's probably not the best way to handle your assignments, but it's how I did it, and I was fine. So,
yeah.
Deadlines can be rough when it comes to self-motivation, because they can almost be a deterrent from getting work done.
And one of the other biggest challenges in the creative field for me, and this kind of ties into our last point, which is self-motivating in a creative field as a hobbyist for it. One of the hardest parts for me is that there's a very fine line, because a lot of the things that you need to do are very close to being distractions when it comes to self-promotion.
Right.
Like networking is a big one. Networking, especially on social media, and this is something I run into a lot with the horror blog, is I can just have fun and, like, run and talk to people on the horror blog, and it's, like, fun because we're talking about scary stuff and we're ranking things and we're, like, listening to creepypasta narrations and we're having, like, a good time, but it's like and I have to do a certain amount of that to be able to stay current and do updates and stuff and network with content creators that I want to do stuff with. But at the same time, it's like, it's very easy for that just to be my whole life, because that's all I want to do all the time.
Right. You have to come down to, you have to balance having that fun with having the responsibility, which is easily one of the hardest things to do, because I don't know about you, but I like having fun more than I like doing work.
And it's really easy for the procrastinator or for the non-motivated part of you to be like, I'm not putting stuff off, I'm not goofing off, I'm socializing, I'm networking,
right.
I'm doing promotions, and it's like, it's really dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
Because you do have to have so much of an online presence in a creative field, but you can't, it needs to be second place to whatever you're creating, and that's a really dangerous trap to fall into.
Right, it's very, because one of the things, like, I've gotten, like, out of school and stuff, is you need to be posting, like, the majority of the week. Like, you should be posting, like, 4 out of 7 days. Like, even if it's not complete things, if it's just works in progress, if it's, like, sort of, like, a side thing, if it's, like, sketches, like, you need to be showing that you're doing something. And this was something me and Ben were talking about also, is to have a presence in the online, like, because there's so many other people that have a presence there, you've gotta keep your content coming consistently.
Yeah.
Which, like, so even when you're talking to people and, like, socializing and networking, that's just half of the thing.
Right.
Because you also have to be putting out your content, otherwise you're just another person.
Yeah.
There, who is also enjoying stuff, and, like, you're making friends and whatnot, but you're not building your brand.
It's something that I've had a really tough time with, and just recently I've started posting original content to the blog more, but it was like, it's just so hard to stay on top of stuff, and I have so much fun doing stuff with other people that I have been at the same amount of followers for, like, a long time now, and at first I couldn't figure it out, and then I realized, like, randomly, it had been, like, several months since I'd done any original content for the blog specifically. It's like, that's not good.
It's like, oh, wait.
That's what I started this blog to do, and I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just talking about creepypastas now.
And as much as we all love to talk about creepypastas, sometimes you gotta write a creepypasta.
It's just, I get really wrapped up too, and because I set up my queue as, like, a background thing, but if I'm not careful, or if I get behind on it, setting up my queue is, like, a full-time job, and it's like,
Like, oh, shit.
And then I spend so much time doing that. And also, if I'm not careful, I get, like, too much of the same content next to each other in the queue. I spent, like, 2 hours this morning separating out unsettling stories in my queue, because there were so many of them.
Listen, that's somebody that puts out content consistently.
Yeah.
Or if he's not putting out new content, he's promoting his other content that's already out. Because he reblogs a lot of his own stories.
Yeah, he does. And the thing about it is, like, he's always having conversations with people about his art. And it has never... He's put out a new story or part of a new story just about every day for the last few years that I've been following him, at least, and it's very impressive. If you want to look up to someone in the creative field, look up to Unsettling Stories. Honestly, like, you don't have to like the content, because it's not for everyone, but he's very dedicated to what he does. It's very impressive. He's got a fantastic work ethic for someone who works for themselves.
Yeah, because he's totally like that. He just runs it by himself. He just runs his own website, all that. He just does it all by himself. It's astounding.
Yeah.
God damn you, Max. Also, talking about somebody who talks to people. Sometimes Max says things, and I have to read them, and sometimes I wish I didn't. As it turns out.
Yeah. That's correct.
mad at him about things.
Sometimes he reblogs stuff. Like, he'll post stuff, and I'll comment on it, and then he'll reblog that, and it's like, but my comment was about how I didn't want to have to read the thing, and then I get notified that he reblogged me, so it's like, then I have to read it again, and it's like...
My favorite is when he posts something and someone's like, I can't believe you made me read this, and he replies with just, what?
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 I wish I hadn't learned how to read English. What? Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny.
But, I mean, he's doing regular content.
Right.
Know? And that's something we're going to get into in part 2.
Which is tips for self-motivation. Because I don't know about everyone else, but I have executive dysfunction. And I need tips for self-motivation because I don't do things.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Nice.
It's incredibly difficult for me to do things in general, even things I want to do.
Right.
Which is part of that,
So here, these are some general tips that are applicable to a lot of different situations and everything. And we're going to talk about, like, different methods as they come up on our general goals. So, yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to start?
Yeah. So, the first thing is you have to set yourself measurable and challenging but attainable goals. And this is one of those, like, lame things that everyone will tell you if you do, like, a self-help workshop or you read a book.
I've heard this in class a million times.
If you take a class or if you find an article online. But if you set yourself goals, you feel better when you do them.
Right.
You know? Like, you have to acknowledge it as a goal. And then you can't just say, I want to be a professional content creator. Like, you have to decide what you want to do, and you have to break it down into steps that you can attain, because...
Right, because otherwise you're shooting for a goal that you don't know how to get to, because a general goal it's always good to keep the end game in mind, but the fact is, if you don't know how to get to the end game, you're never going to get there.
Right. So you can be like, so if one thing that you're having problems with is self-promotion, you can say, I want to put out more of my art. And that's like a very good general goal, but you have to start somewhere. So maybe like the first day, it's to do some research and figure out which online market would be best for you, And then the second day, it's to set up in that online market. And then you do every day you do a little bit more. And then as you have the basic structure done, you can start to do longer term goals. I want to post 4 out of every 7 days, I want to, but you have to set these goals for yourself. And if you find that your goals are too easy, like you're not having any kind of trouble doing them, keep that pace steady, but then try to make your goals a little bit more challenging, because then you'll feel more accomplished and you'll be getting more done.
Right. Like, what I find is really helpful is, like, I sort of have the end game of where I want to get to in mind, but I start myself off slow. It's like working out. It's like you have to build yourself up in order to be able to maintain, like, the kind of pace you want to get. So, like, what I do is, and I've sort of lost this during the summer because, again, I have a hard time self-motivating, but during last semester, like, I had a class where I had to post in, like, I had to, like, keep an employment activities journal, which is basically what I did to make myself marketable, like, over the week. So one of my rewards that I got, one of my things that I got was, like, I wanted to have more of a online presence. So, like, I set small goals. Like, my first goal was, like, I want to post at least once a week to one of my social media accounts. And then, and through that, I ended up, like, I got my Facebook set up, I got my Instagram set up, I got my Tumblr revamped, like, I got all that, and I started posting more consistently, whether it was works in progress or, like, stuff I had done outside of class. And it was one of those things where over the semester, I just built up more and more that I could do until by the end, like, I had, like, a decent sized something to show.
Right.
That being said, I did not have the self-motivation over the summer to keep up with that, because as it turns out, working a day job sucks.
And that's something, do the opposite of that. No. But it is something, if you have to get into certain habits, try to keep them, because that's like, once they're forming habits is the hardest part, and we're going to talk about that a little bit later on the list, but yeah.
So, set goals, make sure you can do them, and then once they become easy, like, it's important that your goals become easy before you rank up the difficulty on them.
Because if you set your goals too high and they're unobtainable, you're just going to feel worse and not do anything.
Right.
And the other thing is, like, if you do fall out of habits, like, if you're making really good on your goals and then something happens and I was doing Duolingo. For those of you who don't know, this is not a creative thing, but it is a good example because of the obnoxiously strict way in which it counts your progress. I was doing Duolingo, and I was going on a 250-day streak, and I went on vacation, and I didn't have consistent internet, and I lost my streak. And then, even though it was one of those things, I had time every day while I was on vacation to study foreign language, and I didn't do it because I had just lost a 250-day streak, and I was sad.
Right.
It's like, so that's one of the... It was really good up to the point where it's like, because I really wanted to hit a year, and it was like it was a nice goal, but it was ridiculous because Duolingo is very strict and sometimes it glitches out, and they were like, but then I quit doing the thing that I
that you would work so hard for.
Because it's easy to forget that it's not about the goals, the smaller goals.
Right.
It's about the long-term effect. And I finally, this last week, I'm on, like, a 4-day streak now, and it sucks starting over. But if you do mess up your goals, it is okay to start over.
Right. It's gonna sting, but, like, the most important part is that you don't, even while it's stinging, that you don't give up.
And it was such a weird thing, because I came back home, and I was like, I started Duolingo, and it's like, I was so bitter about my streak, and that same day, like, my Harry Potter book came in French, and I'm reading in a different language, and I felt like a failure for it. It's like, but my streak is gone, and it's like, It's
like, hold on, you lost sight of the end goal, which was to be able to speak and read French fluently.
And it's like, but yeah. So goals are one of those, they're a tool for you to reach success, but they're also easily a distraction.
Right.
But our next thing, reward success.
This is most often how I do mine, because I'm self-indulgent and I like to do things for me, because I'm a firm believer in treat yourself. Consistently.
That's good.
So reward success is basically, it's like when you're training your dog, and, like, so they do something right, so you give them a treat. That's basically the entire principle of, you get something done, and then you do something you want to do because of it.
Positive reinforcement. It's very good.
However, this is easily one of those things.
It can be dangerous.
So what always happens with me is I'm like, I'm gonna finish the thing, and then I'm gonna watch an episode of a show, and then I watch 3 episodes of a show, and I'm like, fuck. That's not what I meant to do.
And that was something I had, like, a really tough time with while I was in school, because it would be like, I'll finish homework for one class, and then I'll
do a thing.
And it was usually, like, a game, because that's what I was into in high school. It was like, I'll do, like, a round of a thing, and then, like, 6 rounds later, it's like, I've got to do another class.
Right, I've got to do another thing. So, this is one of the easiest things to do, because you're always going to know what you want to do. You're going to know what you want your reward to be, because you know what you like. However, you gotta have a lot of self-discipline to use this one effectively. Which, it's...
And my best work days are days when I am able to do this, but I have a lot of work days where I forget to do it flat out, which are usually followed by days when I feel burnt out and don't want to do anything.
Right.
Or I have days where I just immediately fall into whatever the reward is, and it's
just like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
So, can be very good, but be careful.
Yeah.
Make sure your reward is not too engrossing unless you're finishing a thing.
Yeah.
Like, you can't have a big reward after every small thing.
And sometimes what I'll do on days when I feel like I'm going to have problems balancing is I'll have like a to-do list that I write myself in the morning, and I'll just reward myself when I get it done for as long as I feel like.
Right.
You know? And I find that's the method that's most effective if there's, like, something that's come out on Netflix that I want to see. Because I know that the most rewarding thing for me is going to be to binge watch that season.
Right.
But I can't do that in the middle of my work day.
That's
so it's
true.
Like, gotta get my work done fast.
The way I use it that's most effective for me is I usually do this when I have long things I have to work on. Like, if I'm working on, like, if I'm doing, like, the whole spiel for a comic page, like inking, line art, dialogue, everything in one sitting. Or like I did this a lot when I was like rendering portraits. I do it 1 hour at a time or like 45 minutes at a time, and then I watch like a 15-minute video or something like that, because it's important, like especially if you're an artist that's working with your arm, you need to rest.
Right.
It is so important that you don't draw for 3 hours and then rest. You need to take breaks in between.
Yeah.
So I find like 15-minute video. The one I always do is I always watch Death to the Ender Dragon.
Oh, good.
So I like will I'll do 45 minutes. I'll watch an episode of Death to the Ender Dragon because I know I like it, and it's a series.
Yeah.
And they're short episodes. So I'll watch it, then I'll get back to work, and then I have another 15-minute video to look forward to at the end.
Yeah.
But another important thing that does when you take those small breaks is you get to step away from your work.
And that can be really helpful.
Yeah, it's super important because it's like turning your canvas around. It gives you a new view of it when you step away.
Yeah.
So, like, do that.
And that's also, I was going to talk about this a little bit later for self-care, but just as a side note here, if you have any kind of job or hobby or whatever where you are sitting for long periods of time, you are supposed to just like do stuff 5 minutes out of every hour.
Yeah.
So if you can find like a 5-minute workout video that you like, do that once an hour.
Like, just something to keep you moving, because being in one place for several hours, not a great thing.
Not good. And if you're an artist or if you do longhand writing of any kind, that break is so important for your arm or hand or, you know.
Whatever you're using.
Right. Yeah. So, after that, be accountable, compete or share goals, or do all three of these things. I have, like, a little bit of a competitive streak. It's generally not there. A lot of times I'm, like, a very laid-back person, but when I'm not, I'm really, really not. So if I can get into, like, a contest or something that has to do with my field, NaNoWriMo.
That's the one.
Good. For me, it's always a very productive month. I did, like, it was 135,000 words last November, just for the one thing, and that wasn't counting, you know, like, submissions and edits and, like, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, if you can find a thing... Also, NaNoWriMo's not competitive. I do a NaNoWriMo, tied-in event that is competitive. NaNoWriMo's like a nice, relaxing, fun time. I don't want to misrepresent that here. Yeah.
It's one of those things where even if you're not in a competition, you can make it, like, my technique for things is I make it into a game where if I'm not competing against somebody else, I'm competing against myself.
Right.
Because, as it turns out, competition is a good motivator because everyone likes to win.
Yes.
So it's like, if you can find something to, like, sort of be competitive about, or if you find someone who's willing to, like, go back and forth with you because they're also competitive, like, but it should be a friendly competition.
Right.
Above all else, don't be an asshole about it.
Don't be me.
Cat, no.
No. Again, usually I'm fine. I got into a little bit of a passive-aggressive word count war with someone last year that I'm not proud of.
Oops.
I was in the wrong. I was bad.
That was on you.
It was a long history, but that would just be making excuses for my behavior last year.
Whoopsie.
I was provoked, but it's okay to just step down from things.
Right.
I never do, but it's okay. It's correct.
Don't be Cat.
Don't be me. But yeah, and even if it's not if it's not a competition or a game or whatever, just telling people your goals is good, because you don't want to ever tell someone that you failed to do something you said you were gonna do.
Right.
So yeah.
I think it's one of those things where, no matter, whether you come out on top in a competition, you definitely haven't failed because you achieved something to some degree.
Right.
Though,
that's good.
Coming out on top does feel very good, as it turns out. Would recommend.
A good time.
Woo!
And on that, track your progress, because if you can track that you did something, it feels
Right.
good. And then on days, or at times when you didn't complete something, you can look back at all of the times that you succeeded to do a thing.
Right. It's one of those things, I keep all my old sketchbooks. Kat knows this. Kat has seen my sketchbooks from fucking 6th grade, because she was there while it was happening.
Yeah.
And I still have them. And so it's one of those things where if, I'm having feeling really bad, I pull out one of my sketchbooks and I'm like, wow! I've definitely made progress, as it turns out. And I think art comparisons are, or writing comparisons, taking something, old and comparing it to something new is really going to show you how far you've come and show you just how much progress you've made. Because I feel like a lot of the time, and I mean, I also fall into this, is we get caught up comparing ourselves to other people.
Yeah.
When, the only people that are going to, hold themselves as better than you are people that are really not worth your time.
Yeah.
I met so many of them while I was in New York, and they were the most annoying people, and I did not care about them at all. The people I cared about were my friends who, even though some of their art was, in my opinion, better than theirs, would be like, no, shut up, look what you did. You did this with your hands.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's it's good. It helps you feel good about yourself, which is important in creating art.
Yeah. And you want to, and this is another one of those balancing act kind of situations. You want to surround yourself with people who make you feel good about what you do, but not people who will make you feel too good about what you do.
Right.
You want people who are supportive, but you don't want to end up in an echo chamber, essentially.
Right. You want people who are giving you constructive criticism from a good place.
Yeah.
And not people who are just inflating your ego.
Exactly.
Because, let me tell you, I met a lot of those in New York, too. Oh, boy. Oh, God. It's one of those things I see happen, and it's actually on social media a lot. This happens because, I mean, you're not going to meet, if you're reaching a huge audience, a lot of people aren't going to have that artistic experience and aren't going to be able to give you, they're going to have a very, this is good or this is bad.
Yeah.
That's, a lot of the reactions you're going to get are going to be on one side or the other. Mm-hmm. But, sometimes, and it's important that you take in feedback. But it's one of those things where you sort of have to filter it.
Yeah.
You gotta take the stuff that is really applicable and work on that.
Right.
Because as it turns out, some people just, do art of, questionable morality and, do not, they only listen to the good things that they're hearing and dismiss everything else.
Right.
And it's maybe you shouldn't do that. Maybe just a thought, but yeah.
Yeah. So our next one is form habits, which I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's art. A lot of people will say this. I hear it a lot about writing, that it's a discipline more than it is an art. But that same principle could be applied to art.
Yeah.
That art is more of a discipline than art, which doesn't make any sense. Which is why, like, I don't like the phrasing for that, because it applies to all creative fields. But it's something where it's like, if you can get in the habit of doing something, you're more likely to do it every day.
Right.
And it's going to get easier each day that you do it to keep, progressively, it's going to feel like less of a chore. And this ties into the Japanese practice of Kaizen.
Ooh.
Which is a self-improvement technique where at the same time every day you do something you try to do something you want to be able to do for 1 minute every day. And then you get progressively better at it each day, and then you stretch it out to 5 minutes, because at that point you're already doing the basics of the thing.
Right.
And it's the same premise that a lot of, it's not a 1 minute principle for a lot of things, but there are like a lot of apps, like Duolingo, which I've talked about today, or like Lumosity, where you just do a couple minutes every day, and it's easy to keep the habit because it's only a few minutes of your time, but over time you get better.
Right. It's one of those things where even though at first it may seem really hard to like push yourself to be able to keep that habit, once you start doing it, a lot of the times it feels less like a chore.
Yeah.
Because suddenly like you're feeling better about it and you're more used to doing it, so you don't feel the stress associated with finding the time to do it.
Right.
And like if you're like me and you have a day job, it's really hard to set aside a specific time to do things because I don't work a consistent shift. God, I wish I did. But like there's a lot of times like my next work week, like I'm working like 10 to 2 and then I'm working 8 to 2 and then I'm working 4 to 8 and I'm like, I would just like a consistent shift, please. I don't get it.
No.
But so even if you can't do it at a consistent time every day, like you should identify a time of day when you feel most able to do things.
Right.
And try to do it then.
Like when you first wake up, or when you first go to bed, or when you take your lunch break. Like tie it to a thing that you know you're going to do every day.
Right. So even though it's not exactly the same kind of principle, it is just one of those make the time, and over time it will you won't be taking the time, you'll be doing what you enjoy.
And I'm going to take this opportunity to do a few more plugs, actually. Because
for Lumosity.
Lumosity. Brought to you by Quadricopter.
No!
No, it's something one thing that I really like doing, like free clicks for charity. And one of the sites that I really like is Care2, which tracks your progress, like how much you've helped over time. So like you go, the charities make money because of the ad revenue when you click the button.
Right.
And it's really nice. And Care2 I like because it tracks that principle for you. And it tells you like the date you signed up, and then if you go to like your information page, they have like a My Impact page, and you can see like how many meals you've provided and how many books have been donated and whatever. There's also like Tab for Cause, which does it passively, where you donate the hearts.
Right, that's what I usually do, and I should get it for my iPad browser because I have it on my computer, but I don't use my computer nearly as much as I did anymore because I have an iPad now.
Right. But Care2, Greater Good, free kibble, and for any French speakers out there, click Animo. And yeah, all good things that you can support for free.
This sort of ties into the next one, actually, which is help others.
Yes.
So it's in a different way.
In a different way.
But it's a good segue.
It is. It's very nice.
So helping others is a good way to motivate yourself. Because when you make other people feel better, it also, helps you feel better.
And it's something, kind of, we do an advice podcast now, but before that, I did like a lot of, and I guess I still do, I do like a lot of reviews for peers. I do, like, peer reviews
Yeah.
for writers. And it's something where it's, like, reading something, critiquing something, it allows you to get, like, when you tell someone to do something, it makes you want to do it yourself, and you start working on those own weaknesses in your own work.
Right. It's one of those things that this is the most helpful thing to get me to do things, because I, have some pretty bad anxiety and depression, which makes it hard for me to work on things sometimes, because I get really caught up in my own head, and so one of, like, the fears that I have is that, oh, I'm making this thing, but it's not going to matter to anyone else, and then I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
So when someone, when I finally do show somebody, and they're like, you should keep doing this, it's great, and I'm like, my heart, that makes me feel good. I would like to do that. I also want to see what you're doing. Where are your OCs? Give them to me. I like people's OCs. I would like more OCs. And fan characters. I want characters. That's my favorite thing in the whole world. But, like, a lot of this also comes into play, like, this is a very academic thing as well. Like, on a lot of projects, you do have peer review, where, like, the teacher will give their opinion, and then they'll open up the floor to the rest of the class, who will also give their review. And so it was one of those things, I have a story about this, because, like, one time we were doing, like, 5-panel comics in class, and so I had done mine, and, like, the teacher was, like, not so happy with it. He was sort of like, it could be more actiony, there could be more going on with this, and so I was like, I was feeling really bad about it. I was like, oh man, I fucked this up. And then, like, he opened it up to the floor, and they were like, actually, I like this a lot more than I would like to see any of those other things, because it gives me an insight into what's going on before any of the action actually happens. And I was like, oh, I feel better now. And so it's one of those things, helping others, like, when you can see a visible change in somebody, or, like, see their enthusiasm at getting a response or getting critique and stuff like that, it's so nice.
Yeah.
Like,
it's good.
Because you're just spreading the goodwill, you're spreading the creative energy. And who doesn't like that?
That's a good thing to do. That's, like, one of the best things you can do.
Right?
As a creator. Yeah.
Creators like feedback, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Well, most
creators like feedback.
Oh.
So yeah, I help others. Our last official bullet thing is avoid procrastination, which is difficult.
Yeah. Easily one of the hardest things, because I don't. I procrastinate worse than anyone I know, probably.
Procrastination is really tempting, and any procrastinators listening to this are going to know the truth of this. You are so much more productive as a procrastinator in such a short amount of time.
Right.
It's like, you could have done... It's one of those things, if you put something off until the last day, you spend that whole last day working better and quicker than you thought you would be able to do. But the content overall suffers for it. It's a good thing to avoid. Or, like, if something comes up last minute, you are going to miss out on opportunities.
Right. It's like, I'm very much a person who procrastinates. Very badly. And I think it's part of, when you're working under that last minute, you're having an adrenaline rush. And of course, after an adrenaline rush, you got lots of endorphins.
Right.
Which leads into the cycle of procrastination.
Yes.
Which is bad.
One way to quit doing that, there's a fun method that I want to talk about. And it's called eating the frog. It's a self-help technique that's fairly popular right now, that stems from a Mark Twain quote that is debated about what the quote actually was and not verified.
Of course.
So, like, if you go to any of the blogs or whatever, or read the book, there's a book called Eat the Frog. about this. You might or might not see one of the quotes attributed to Mark Twain. I don't know if that's true. Couldn't find it verified anywhere trustworthy.
Of course.
I think he might not have said it. But anyway, the quote goes as follows. If it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to do it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to eat the big one first. And the other thing that you'll see quoted, also attributed to Mark Twain and unverified, eat a live frog first thing in the morning and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. And the idea behind this as a self-help thing to avoid procrastination is pretty much do whatever the worst thing you have to get done is first thing, because everything will seem easier from there.
Right. It's like, this goes for like, because this is the technique my dad used when we moved into my apartment, is move the heaviest thing into the house first, because everything else is lighter by comparison.
Exactly.
And let me tell you, that fucking wood shelf I have out there, that it's heavy as hell, because my dad was a fool and made it when he was 20 out of not pine.
Good.
You should have made it out of pine.
No. Listen.
It's so heavy, Cat. It's so heavy. But yeah, it's definitely like eating the frog it's just a bona fide way to help.
It's something that's really good for freelancers, especially if you're balancing a lot of stuff, because I take a lot of contracts and I don't like all of them, and if I do the stuff that I like first, I want to extend those projects as much as possible so that I don't have to get to whatever the thing is. It's romance. It's almost always romance.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
So but if you do the romance first, then you get to do all the fun stuff later.
Yeah.
You get to finish on a high note, which is the most important thing.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most effective, one of the most effective methods on getting anything done. Because this can go for literally anything that you do. Is the worst one first.
Exactly.
But yeah.
And the one downside is because my least favorite part of a project is editing it, and I can't do that first.
Yeah, you sort of have to do that second. There's no way around it.
No.
Really.
Oh, and I didn't forget about it. We're cycling back around to this. I didn't put it on the bullet points. One other really good thing for self-motivation, self-care. Take care of yourself. If you're not feeling great, you're not going to want to do stuff.
Right. You don't want to push yourself. Because as important as it is to, get stuff done when you're, a freelancer and everything like that, it's also important that you, are not sick or stressing yourself out.
Yeah.
You have to put yourself first, because without you, you can't make anything. Because you're dead. And as fun as ghostwriting is... It's not...
I'm leaving the podcast.
Okay. I don't even need to finish that joke. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's one of those things, especially in the American system of everything, our country is specifically bad about putting yourself first over making money and stuff like that, which is a really toxic thing you have to unlearn, because... They saddle you up with 8 hours of homework, and they're still you gotta get 8 hours of sleep and do 8 hours of school, but you also have to get all this homework done right now. And it's I gotta live at some point, right?
No.
Oh.
But yeah, no, do that.
Cat. No.
I'm sorry. It's a weird day for me to be talking about self-help, because...
You're sick.
Yeah, I'm sick. I had hot wing Doritos. Again.
That was self-care.
I'm bad about self-care, but it's good. One thing for me specifically that helps also is because you're supposed to drink a fuck ton of water every day.
Yeah.
So I just keep water consistently by my desk, because if I have to get up to get water, I'm not going to. I'm going to finish what I'm working on, and then I'll start working on something else and forget about it, and then it's no, I'll get water after, and then I never do.
It always becomes, I'll do it after.
Yeah.
One of the, one of the things for water, like, I don't drink water if it's just in a cup. Like, I'll forget about it. I'll forget about anything if I just put it in a regular cup. If I put it in a cup with a straw, though, it is gone.
Yeah.
So fast.
It sounds like a really, kind of like a dumb tip, but I got one of those, like, water bottles with a straw in it, and I've been a lot better about getting my water in.
You died there for a second. Why would you do that?
It's because you didn't scratchy.
It's because you didn't drink your water.
Yeah.
Also, you were not self-help when you got into the house because you didn't take your medicine.
Yeah.
Right away. You pet the dog.
But yeah, like, sleeping enough. If that's another thing is, like, if you're working on a bunch of stuff, go to bed.
Right. Like, you need
like, get
to
as
sleep.
much as you can done, but if it comes to a point where you're not going to be doing well because you haven't slept,
right,
sleep.
Right. Sleep is super important, and, like, if you do have trouble sleeping, like, Kat here has insomnia.
Yeah.
But she does try to sleep.
I do try. And I do it. For a while, after the insomnia started, I was really good about laying down at the same time every day to train my body to go to sleep. And then I went on vacation, and that's all gone.
And then you fucked it up.
But hey.
That's how it is. I think one of the most important things, there's also, like, you'll hear, like, a lot of people, like, gatekeeping when it comes to, like, doing things like that. I'm talking about medicine.
Okay.
Like, if you have, like, things you need to take medicine for, like, specifically, like, mental illness stuff, take your medicine. Like, I just, like, can't function without it. And I think it's really important that you don't let other people influence you away from it.
Right.
Like, if you're taking it and you know it's what you need, keep up with it.
Yeah.
Because it's, like, one of those things, like, somebody was talking about, like, how Van Gogh, like, we wouldn't have, like, some Van Gogh pieces if he had medicated, and it was like, hold on. But he did.
Yeah.
Though. So yeah. One of my most important things is, like, do what you need to do to keep your sanity and body intact.
Right. I'm not going to comment on that too much because I have very unhealthy views on that for myself, but it's nothing that I would condone for other people.
Right.
I don't take medication for stuff because it affects the way that I, as a person, function in a way that I don't like.
Right.
But
the thing is,
I definitely wouldn't want anyone to see that and be like, she doesn't take medicine for this and I shouldn't take it either. It's like, if you need medication, you should take it.
Right. It's like, you need to know what's gonna help you.
Yeah.
And be best for you.
Exactly.
So don't let... You have to be the one to, like, decide... Don't let anyone influence you in a way that is going to hurt you.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Good.
That's my views on that.
And edging into that, it's a good segue, because part 3 is conquering specific challenges.
Woohoo!
And there are... everyone's situation is different, which is why it's good not to let yourself be influenced by other people's decisions for themselves.
Right.
But here are just, like, a couple of challenges that people have, and techniques for conquering them.
Woo!
To start in there. And this is... I read this article the other day that got me thinking about this for a self-motivation thing. Fear of rejection.
That's a big one.
A really big one. And I read about a woman who conquered it in a really interesting way because her goal for this year was to collect 100 rejection letters.
And it didn't work because she was getting too many. Things, right?
Yeah. And it was like a fun social media anecdote, but that's a really good goal, you know?
Right.
If you turn, like, the worst part of it into something to strive for, you know? If you take a lot of chances, and it's good.
Right. It's like, the fear of rejection is definitely, I think, one of the most universal fears.
Yeah.
Because it stems from, like, a lot of things that, you know, from all different types of sources for everybody, but I mean, like, specifically like, when you're creating things and, like, having it rejected is, like, feels bad. And so a lot of people just don't do it because you can't get hurt if you don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you also can't get accepted if you don't do it.
Exactly. And it's important to find ways to make the rejection seem less scary so you can try harder at taking chances that you believe in.
Right.
And there are always, like, fun things that you can do. You know, like, the rejection letter goal was kind of fun. I saw someone on Twitter today who had hard copies of all of their rejection letters decoupaged into a coffee table. It's like, it's good.
Nice, dude. I think it's also one of those things when you have a fear of rejection, looking up success stories is always good. Do you want to tell the one about J.K. Rowling?
Oh.
About how, wasn't it like 20 publishers?
Yeah.
Rejected Harry Potter before it got published or something like that?
Yeah. It was a lot. And now she's literally one of the wealthiest people in the world.
I wish that was me.
She wrote Harry Potter on, like, cafe napkins because she didn't have money to buy books. And now it's like, that's insane.
Right, and then, same thing as I always talk about, because I'm always talking about FNAF, Scott Cawthon.
Oh, that's not where I thought you were going. I thought you were going to talk about Book of Life.
Oh,
so
no.
it was rejected by, like, every studio.
That's because of cowards. No, I was going to talk about FNAF, because I'm always talking about FNAF.
That's fair.
And how it was his, like, he had made lots of games before. I looked at his, like, game list, and I was like, no offense, Scott, but I can see why they didn't catch on. But so he did, like, a lot of things, and then, like, so FNAF was his last-ditch effort to make a indie game before he had to, like, give up on it entirely. And look where we are now. The children outside are always playing FNAF. It's so cute.
It's amazing.
Ben was, like, talking the other day. He was like, yeah, they're playing FNAF out there. I just heard him screaming, Night Guard, really loud. And I was like, oh, my God, that's so cute. I, like, walked by the other day, and they were talking about Toy Bonnie and Toy Freddy, and I was like, this is absurd. This is absurd how this happened. It's also another thing. The more you get rejected, the better it is when you overcome.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I'm not gonna lie. One of my biggest motivators in anything is spite. We had a whole episode about spite.
Yeah.
And part of the reason, like, I feel like I've come so far as an artist is because of spite. Because I don't think I told this story in the podcast, but I'm gonna call out Ben for a second. The first time I met Ben, he insulted my artwork.
Oh.
He told me all my characters looked the same, which was, in all fairness, I did show two very similar characters. But then I got pissed about it. And I was like, I'll show you similar characters. And now here I am with all sorts of different sizes and shapes and everything. And, like, I still bring it up sometimes. But yeah. Spite will take you a long way.
It will. I save all my rejection letters. I really have liked some of my rejection letters. I have a very interesting... I feel like a lot of people get, like, 4 rejection letters, and I'm the kind of person who submits stuff that just, I guess, needs commented on. I've never gotten, like, a form rejection.
Yeah!
I've always gotten, like, oh, why did you do this thing?
Yeah, that sounds about right. What was the latest one? Was it the... Edgar Allan Poe one?
Erotica, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh boy, did I get some comments about that. Good.
They didn't accept it because they're cowards.
Right. That's always that's always, like, sometimes I just don't make the cut for stuff, you know, because it's a very competitive field, but a lot of time, the way that rejection letters are written, it's always like, you're a coward. The first thing I ever sent into an anthology got rejected because it was too depressing. And I just, like, it was a zombie anthology, and it's like, I don't know how, they said it was, like, too pessimistic, and they were, like, worried about me, and I'm like, I don't like that, because that's what zombie fiction is, and it's a zombie anthology. But I submitted it to a different zine, and it was the first piece that I got published.
That's how it goes.
And it's, yeah, there's like a lot of stuff like that. I ended up, one of the most recent pieces that I got published, it came in last place in a different contest online, because it was too graphic, and then, like, hey.
Whoops.
So yeah, like, rejection letters, you can be really inspired by them.
Yeah. You
can choose to be.
It's, and I mean, it's not easy to not feel like rejection is, like, telling you that you suck.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes it is. But it's important that being told that you suck doesn't end it.
Right.
Like, you just gotta take it and be like, well, I'm gonna not suck. How about that? That's
how it works.
That's how it is.
That's what you've got to do.
That's art.
It's true. It's too true. Yeah. So, the next one, anxiety.
Woohoo!
This is also one.
This is also one I'm very familiar with, as it turns out.
When I first started submitting to anthologies, the hardest part for me, because I was very afraid of being rejected, and I'd never had a rejection letter in my life, and I sent in this piece that I worked really hard on, and then, like, as soon as I sent it off, it's like, what if it doesn't get accepted? You know, like, what? The rejection is going to be so bad and I'm not going to be able to take it. And I didn't know that it would be, like, the funniest rejection letter I've ever read. But, like, the time between me submitting and the time between hearing back was, like, one of the roughest experiences in my life up to that point. I was very on edge. It was really bad. And when I take a hiatus from submitting, or when I first get back into submitting, that anxiety always kind of comes back. It's like if you're in a regular submission routine, you're just so used to getting rejection letters that it doesn't make that big of a difference, and they all overlap, and it's just kind of background noise as opposed to. But one thing that I do that helps that a little bit, other than submitting regularly and staying in the habit of it, is that when I motivate myself through bribery, I make sure, like, it's one of those things, if I submit this, I'll do something engaging after, you know, like, I always play games or do something, like, very active immediately after I submit something, so that I'm too busy to worry about it getting rejected.
Right. It's one of those things, one of my big things that I do to quell my anxiety is I listen to music. So one of the things that, like, I do to distract myself is I just get in the car and I just drive and I just listen to music. And sometimes I don't even get in the car. Sometimes I just sit down, put on music, sing along, and just do that. Like, I'll put on, like, a simple puzzle game. I've been playing too much Mahjong still. But, like, so I'll just do that, and then I'll get caught up in that, and then I won't be worried.
Right.
And it's like, and of course I medicate, of course, because my anxiety is bad. But it's, like, one of those things where it's, like, you just gotta do something that, it can be, like, monotony, like, doing something monotonous actually really helps my anxiety, because I'm just doing the same thing over and over again.
Right.
And, like, it's all good. Like, I mean, it's not all good, but, like, it's good for however long I need it to be.
Yeah.
And then, like, I can, like, do other things, I guess. Like, it's also one of those things, I apply for a lot of jobs, because I don't want to work at Starbucks anymore. And so I have a lot of waiting to hear back from anybody. So, like, it's one of those things where, like, it's like the regular submission thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's just keep doing what you're doing. Because then if you don't hear back from something, it's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just gonna put in another thing later today, so if I don't hear back from one, I have 2 more options.
Yeah. And it's good.
It's good.
Last thing, time management.
Ooh, I'm bad at all these things.
They're hard. They're, like, really tough things.
Hard things.
One thing that helps me is organizing.
Mm-hmm.
I like organizing sometimes more than I like working. I really like organizing things.
I also really like organizing.
It's very calming. But it's really helpful. And like I said with the submissions, I organize things that I want to submit to by the order, in the order that they're due.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you know me, I like tabbing stuff and color coding, and it's
highlighting.
It's very nice. Highlighting is my favorite thing. If I could highlight stuff more, I'd be so happy.
You have a lot of journals that are just filled with highlighters.
Sometimes I have to highlight everything. Yeah, but it's good. And it helps me prioritize also. Like, if I fall behind in my submission schedule, I can look at what I have left in the month, and I can be like, these are the anthologies that I want to submit to most. I'm going to move them up front, and I make sure I get those done before anything else. And it's like, just little stuff like that can really help.
Right. It's like, what I do is, I use this a lot in my schoolwork. It's like, I prioritize by classes that do not accept late work.
Mm-hmm.
Classes that do accept late work. That's my first prioritizing thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I prioritize by, so in the ones that don't accept late work, have I already not submitted something?
Yeah.
And then same thing for the next one that does accept late work. So I sort of like pick my battles when it comes to it. I also really like organizing things. I like it when things are in alphabetical order and size and all sorts of things. I like it when things are like nice and together. To-do lists are very good.
Mm-hmm.
I love to-do lists. 'Cause even if I don't like get it all done, I love seeing what I need to do spelled out in front of me, because I'll forget what I need to do.
And one of the most satisfying things is like checking stuff off on the
Right.
to-do list.
It's so good.
Good.
It feels good. I do them on the computer, so I get to just delete the whole row, and it's like, oh, it's so much smaller now. I had like a killer to-do list system when I was in school in New York.
Mm-hmm.
It was stupid. Like, I wrote out the entirety of what I had to do that week, and then I like broke it into like smaller pieces,
Mm-hmm.
and I had like little checkboxes next to them, and then like once I finished all the work for one class, I would delete the whole thing.
Nice.
Top tier.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Organizing is good.
Organizing feels good. It's one of those things, like, I find this also is a fair thing for, you can sort of work this into the anxiety also.
Mm-hmm.
As corny as it sounds, a clean space does help for, like, a clean mind.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when you clean things up and they feel good, like, you're gonna, like, feel better, you're gonna be less stressed. It's nice.
Yes.
Yes.
That's very true. One other thing, I didn't write it on here, but one other tip that I would suggest
Mm-hmm.
is having, like, some kind of ritual to working.
Yeah.
Like, if you have, and we kind of talked about this a little bit when we were talking about, like, breaks and stuff, but if you do something, if you have something going on while you're working, it will get you in that mindset that you need to be in to work. One thing that I do is I have a candle that sits in my office, and I only light it when I'm working on stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it keeps me focused, and, like, it's satisfying to see the candle get smaller
Right.
and know that I've been doing stuff. And one thing that I used to do before I got a candle was I used to do incense, because it's like if I work until the incense is burned, or listening to the same thing, it can get really annoying eventually. But if you can find something that you know you can listen to 1,000 times over without getting distracted, you know, there's Alan gets upset with me sometimes because I have like really bizarre things in the Toxic Bubblegum channel, because while I'm working on Toxic Bubblegum things, I listen to an orchestral medley for Coheed and Cambria. So it's like,
Sometimes I just log it up like, what the fuck's going on here today?
But it doesn't have any words, but it reminds me of one of my favorite albums, and it's like, it's good.
It's good.
And it's like, when I put that on, I know I'm gonna work really solidly for at least the next, like, 48 minutes. I don't know how long it is.
However long it is.
But it's good. I also, I do that with The Wall.
That's what I thought you'd say. You're
listen
so
to The Wall all the time.
I mean, I don't have any... like I said, I listen to Death to the Ender Dragon like a million times while I'm working. Or
Death
like...
to the Ender Dragon is just buckets of fun.
Buckets of fun, Mr. Bucket. Buckets of fun. Oh God, I love it so much. It's so dumb. But yeah, I mean, my YouTube history is no better, like, just on its own. Because I just, like, will watch, like, and rewatch stuff. Because if I've already watched it, it's one of those things I also use it to fall asleep. Is I'll just put on stuff that I've already watched. My YouTube list in the morning is, like, it's just a bunch of the Yogscast GTA 5 videos. It's just that. I don't know how I fall asleep to it, but I do.
Sometimes, I've been falling asleep, when I do fall asleep lately, I've been falling asleep to John Oliver, and I don't know why.
Huh. If it works, it works.
That's just, like, a thing that I enjoy, and it's very distracting and loud, and you would think that it would wake me up.
But it doesn't.
It doesn't.
I've been listening, my latest thing, I've been rewatching Markiplier's SCP Containment Breach
That's fun.
playlist, which, as it turns out, he is very loud and distracting. But I've already seen it, so...
Yeah.
I've already been distracted. Once. Can't do it to me again. I can also fall asleep to his FNAF playlist, which is...
That's impressive.
Yeah, I've just watched it a lot.
I used to sleep through the Saw movies, because, like, the lighting was so consistent.
Yeah.
And, like, my parents would get really annoyed about it, because they're like, why is there always screaming all the time at night? It's like, the lighting is consistent. And you're like, no.
So, here's a story about my sister. So I got a copy of Phantom of the Opera, like the movie.
Good.
And so, and I didn't know how to use, an important fact, I did not know how to use a sleep timer on the TV. So, one time, I like to fall asleep in different rooms when I was a kid. Like, I like to move around and be asleep in different rooms. So, I had a period where I was sleeping in the TV room.
Quick side note, that just, it makes you sound like a FNAF animatronic.
I like to be in different rooms.
I like to go to different rooms at night.
I like to go to different rooms at night and be there. But maybe I am a FNAF animatronic.
Oh no.
But I had a copy of Phantom of the Opera and I put it on to fall asleep because I like to fall asleep watching things. So, like, I put it on and my sister ended up sleeping in the room also for some reason. I don't know why. But so, a curious thing that the Phantom of the Opera movie does is when the movie ends and it goes back to the main screen, it doesn't stay on the main screen. If you are on the main screen long enough, it starts the movie over.
Yeah, a lot of movies do that. That's how DVDs work.
What? Anyway, so the point is, I was there, and I slept through the whole thing. I, like, didn't wake up at all. My sister, however, kept waking up and hearing Phantom of the Opera, so she had it stuck in her head for a week. And I was like, and she was like, this is your fault. And I was like,
Here's a fun story.
I'm a
that's
child.
Not related to anything. Alan and I in school used to do this thing where we would find the worst movie on Netflix that we could and fall asleep to it. But then sometimes, like when I started staying up later and later, we would just pick stuff to fall asleep to. And Alan one time is like, we're gonna watch this movie because it looks terrible, and he's out in like the first 5 minutes, and it was like one of the worst movies. I woke up the next day.
You were so pissed at me.
I was trying to explain how bad this movie was to Alan, and he's like, we've got to watch that one day because it sounds hilarious. And then, like 2 years later, we're at a convention, and he's like, oh, hey, here's that movie that I was gonna watch with you, and he puts it on, and he's immediately out.
God. Oh, I'm great. Oh, God.
He did finally watch it with me, though.
Which movie was that?
That was the Prince and the Cobbler.
Oh,
The
it was
Princess and the whatever.
that one.
The Thief and the Cobbler.
The Thief and the Cobbler. That's what it is.
Because there's the uncobbled cut, which is like actually really good, but the movie that they released is just absolutely
bad,
horrid.
It's yep. Found that one on Stalk Trick. Whoops.
I had to watch it 30 times.
That's how it is sometimes. Yeah. I have a history of doing this, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you can find something that's not The Thief and the Cobbler to listen to while you're working.
Do you remember that time we just watched a bunch of fucking Disney sequels?
Yeah.
That was like our theme for a while, was we watched bad Disney sequels.
I love bad Disney sequels. I love Mulan too.
What the
It's
fuck is
so
going
bad.
on in Mulan 2? What the fuck is going on in Mulan 2? Why did we ever watch the good Cinderella sequel? Why did we ever watch that one?
Yeah, like, after we recorded our last episode of the podcast, we were talking about Disney sequels also, and everyone, you were telling me about, like, the good Cinderella sequel, and it's like, I don't even know
we have to
if
watch
that exists.
It does. It does. Also, I can't remember, I haven't seen Aladdin and the King of Thieves for so long, but I feel like that was also, like, a good Disney sequel. It was, again, the third one. I don't remember if it was good or not. I had a really catchy song in there.
Well, there you go.
But I don't remember how good the movie actually was. I know Return of Jafar was bad.
I haven't really, what, was it yesterday, or was it the day before? Today's Thursday? I think it was yesterday, was the, like, 17-year anniversary of Freddy vs. Jason. And I really wanted to watch it, but I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and every year that passes, I'm more scared that it's going to be terrible.
You gotta hit it on that 20-year anniversary.
But what if it's terrible and I'm celebrating the 20-year anniversary? That would be so bad. I almost did it yesterday because it's like it is the anniversary. I should watch it.
You were gonna watch Freddy vs. Jason Into Grave of the Fireflies.
Oh.
What a fucking experience. Fun fact about Grave of the Fireflies that I didn't know. Why was it a double feature with My Neighbor Totoro? That doesn't make sense. That seems upsetting. I'm not over this trivia that we learned today.
It's a fun juxtaposition of
fun happy children versus
abundance and starving to death.
The kids. The kids
They
no.
also don't like Grave of the Fireflies.
The kids, I like Grave of the Fireflies. It's just very sad. I cried.
Yeah.
The children are upset and screaming. They're probably playing FNAF. If I had to guess. Okay, they're going at it. I think we have to end the podcast. They are
Alright.
going at it out there.
So yeah, motivate.
Motivate. Do whatever motivates you. Consult the tip list that we talked about earlier.
I love the sounds from outside.
Yeah, there's so many sounds happening outside. It's an experience, I think is the correct phrase.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going with.
Right. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Anyway, I gotta go fall asleep while Kat watches a bad movie.
No.
So, that's how we're ending this podcast.
Bye.
See you later. I'm done doing outros.
Bye.